Emotion is a very personal thing. What makes me emotional might not necessarily make you emotional. Now, I'm sure we've all heard it said that we should control our emotions. The trouble is, this idea of controlling our emotions implies that there is you and your emotions, two separate entities. Therefore, you are the controller of your emotions. But that's wrong. I myself, in the last couple of years, come to see that that is completely wrong, because you and your emotions are not two separate things. You are your emotions, which is a funny expression, I know, but you and your emotions are one and the same. Emotion is the outward physical expression of internal feelings. Now, I would like to suggest that this outward physical expression of emotion can arise in one of two ways, either gradually or instantly. And I'm going to go into this now, if anybody's interested, of course. Look, a person's thoughts of a certain nature can stir up feelings of the same nature. Or in other words, if a person is thinking in an anxious manner, any feelings that arise will also be that of an anxious nature. Does that make sense? So it's then possible that those thoughts and those feelings become intertwined, feeding off each other, building and growing more and more intense, which then can potentially lead to an outburst of emotion. So that's how an outburst of physical emotion can build up gradually, with thought and feeling being the stimulus. But an emotional outburst can happen almost instantly. Look, I don't know if you've ever received a phone call. You pick up the phone, and whoever it is that is calling you is ringing you to inform you of the death of a loved one or a family member. I don't know if you've ever received a phone call like that, but in that scenario, it's completely possible that an emotional outburst will just happen instantly, will just come over you. You know what I'm saying? Now, more than likely, when you put the phone down, so the phone call's finished, you put the phone down, but that emotion will continue as a result of your thoughts now revolving around that family member who's just passed away. Do you see all this? Now, can there be feelings? Can there be feelings without the physical expression of emotion? Of course, not all feelings will result in an outburst of emotion, but can there be emotion without internal feelings, which are a happening of the nervous system? No, I'd suggest not. Sometimes we speak about emotional attachment, but is that a real thing? Is emotional attachment a real thing? Is it not, to be more accurate, is it not an attachment of perspective and feeling? In a sense, because we don't necessarily become emotional every time we are in the presence of a particular something or someone. Of course we might, but that emotion would be dependent on what our perspective is of that something or someone, which therefore dictates our feelings and emotions. In other words, depending on what I think of a particular something or someone will dictate my feelings and my emotions. So it cannot be an attachment of emotion exclusively. It cannot be an exclusive attachment of emotion. First and foremost, it would actually be an attachment of perspective. I don't know if anybody understands what I'm saying here, or sees what I'm saying here. Now, it is possible that a person becomes so emotional that he becomes irrational, in the sense his behaviour becomes erratic and unjustified. But simply just being emotional and being emotionally irrational are two completely different things. Emotion is just emotion. Emotion alone is not the stimulus for irrational behaviour. But I actually want to do another video on what causes us to be irrational, so I'll go into that in another video. Again, if anyone cares. Sometimes we describe feelings as emotions, or in other words, sometimes we say things like, I feel emotional. But is that the right expression? Is it right to say that? Personally, I would say feelings and emotions are two separate things. To me, feelings are an internal happening of the nervous system, and emotion is the outward physical expression of those internal feelings. To me, unless emotion is actually being expressed, then you're just simply feeling a certain way, not feeling emotional. To me, that's the case. But look, this is just me being overly serious about it all. If you want to describe your feelings as emotions, that's up to you. Go ahead. I'm sure people will still understand what you're saying. I'm just being extremely particular about all this, because that's how serious I am about all this sort of stuff. So, look, what's my point here? My point is for you to question what I'm saying, and therefore hopefully see for yourself how emotion arises. Because I'm suggesting that a person doesn't simply just become emotional without a stimulus. There's always a stimulus, and the stimulus is always personal perspective. Personal perspective, what I mean by that, I'll put it in the comment section of this video. I've used that term plenty of times in my last few videos, but I'm not suggesting anybody is following each one of my videos to the T. So, but what I'm saying is emotion is always the byproduct of personal perspective. And just like feelings, emotion is not something to be controlled. Emotions are a natural occurrence. Emotion arises involuntarily. Again, in the same way, feelings arise involuntarily. To be aware of how and why feelings and emotions arise surely should carry the utmost importance to anybody. No? Maybe you disagree, but listen, I'll end it on this. If emotion arises, if you become emotional, in other words, then it is so. Then it just is. Just to be aware of emotion. Just to be aware of emotion in order for emotion to unfold naturally and healthily is all that needs be. Is that possible? Live your life and see. All the best. Take care.